Hello, everybody. Dr. K here. Welcome to the third Virtual Symposium. It's so good to see everybody. Why don't we turn our cameras on for a second? And so we can take a picture of everybody being here. It's so, like I say, it's so good to see everybody. And I'm going to make my screen just a little bit bigger and turn your cameras on. And we're going to do a screenshot. Everybody, hello.
Hello.
Let me, I got about 3 windows here. Give it again, another one. All right, another one.
Do you want me to pick you up a coffee? Oh, sorry, I got something going on in my ears. I got this.
Okay, please turn off your mics.
Well, I have to.
Okay, now I'm going to show you the program for today. Where is it? As you can see, and I'm going to play from the start. So today we are here to listen to and see presentations from Dr. Chris Cannell at my university, the University of Nebraska-Kearney. Then we have Dr. Sampan and Ms. Dwayne from Kon University in Thailand. Very fine university. Great to make that connection. And then we have Dr. Nishio from Gifu University, Japan, going to give us some little mental health information. And then finally, we have our very own Dr. Rixma and EN from Universitas Pendidikan, Indonesia. I'm going to also let you know that in the chat, if you need help, if you don't speak English, write English, that's fine. There are people here that can translate Chinese, Thai, whatever language you need. Please turn off your mics. And also, in here, I put a form. If you fill out that form when you leave, I will send you a certificate. Okay, everybody? So, turn your mics on 1 second and everybody say hello.
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 All right, now
Hello.
turn your mics off.
Hello.
Turn your mics off. And I want to introduce my good friend and colleague, Dr. Chris Cannell, who is going to be our first presenter today.
All right. Well, welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to get the opportunity to visit with you. Got a few things to start off with. Number one, if you wouldn't mind, in the chat, would you type whatever your title or your role is, whether you're an elementary teacher, middle school, high school, higher education instructor, college student, whatever your particular role is, if you'd be willing to share that in the chat, that would be a great start to our day. Okay. Lecture, college student, university lecturer, wonderful. College student, higher ed teacher, professor, wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm hoping we have a little something for everybody today. And so, like I said, I'm going to share some information with you regarding brain-friendly instruction and what we can do in our classes and our situations to really help students be able to learn the best that they can. I have a couple of goals for today. The first one is going to be to synthesize the latest findings in neuroscience with various learning theories and instructional strategies that will support all learners in our classroom. The past 2 decades have provided some insights that can really help us pull all these things together so that we can provide opportunities for our students to really develop that growth mindset, which is oh so important. So, in the chat real quick, again, if you wouldn't mind, we're going to talk about the brain. I'm going to start off with the amygdala, which is the emotional filter. So all the information that comes into our brain goes through the amygdala, which would be these 2 little lobes right here. And they send information either to the lower brain, which is the primitive control center, controls all the automatic body functions. When we go into flight or fright, that's when things start to happen at the lower brain level. The upper brain, that prefrontal cortex, that's where memory is constructed. And if you think about that, that's where we want students to be operating. That's where we want students to be working and thinking and reflecting and involving themselves with all the information that we want them to be thinking about during the school day. So if we think about that lower brain, things that get sent to the lower brain happen because students are under stress. So I heard that one of our speakers is going to be talking about emotional health and how important that is. And absolutely is true. When students are stressed, when they have anxiety about speaking in class or their fear of being wrong, when we've got a situation where they've got tests and anxiety or frustration because they're not understanding the material, they're feeling overwhelmed or isolated, they're not accepted by their classmates, or even all the different stressors that they bring from home, those particular things get in the way of students being able to think because information gets sent down to the lower brain, where again, it's that fight or flight syndrome. Also, boredom can play a major role in this particular area. If students are bored, that means they're looking at information they've already mastered, things that they understand already, or they just can't relate to it. It doesn't have relevance to their life, then they're going to tune out. That information, again, is going to go to the lower brain. What we want to have is curiosity, interest, and relevancy with the work that they're going to be engaged in. When students are curious about the information, when students want to know more, want to understand more, when they're driven to find out that information, they are going to be understanding that information so much deeper. Really, when we look at all the information that comes into a student's mind, we're looking at only about about 1% that's going to pass into that upper brain and really be in a place where students can use that information, work with that information, to be able to store it in long-term memory. So when we think about that stressful environment, students aren't learning. When we think about boredom, students aren't learning. We want this sweet spot right in the middle where students are able to be focused and be able to really wrestle with the information in a way that makes sense. Another way to think about this, you probably heard of Lev Vygotsky's work with social cultural learning. We want students, again, in that sweet spot. Here's information or activities where we can do it on our own. We're not learning anything there. Here's something that's too difficult. I can't do it on my own. Here is where the sweet spot is, where I can learn information when I'm working with somebody that's more advanced and putting me in a situation by scaffolding my learning so that I'm able to be able to take that information and learn it, understand it, and use it. I want to talk just a little bit about constructivism. Learners are not blank slates. They're not there for the teacher to write the information on. We have to be sure to give them opportunities to really understand, to learn, to know the information. We want to be sure that students are creators of their own knowledge. They build networks or cognitive schema, or I like to think of them as webs of understanding. We want to help them have opportunities to develop connections. We want them to have opportunities to be able to make connection between ideas, between understandings. Whenever we come across new information, let's say I've got an idea, it's put up in front of me, my mind takes that information and it looks at it and it starts to sort it. If it's something that I understand, if it's something that fits with a schema or a web of understanding that I already have in place, it just connects right to that web and I make a nice connection. That information is assimilated. Otherwise, when I get information and I hold it up, I start to look at that and I say, you know what, that doesn't really fit with my understanding that I'm bringing to the situation. That means I'm going to have to go through some type of an accommodation. I'm going to have to either modify the schema that I already have in place, or I'm going to have to create a new schema that's going to have that information. I like to think about it like college classes when I talk with my students. They have a schema in their mind of what a college class will entail. Oftentimes they're thinking it is a lecture situation where the professor walks in, they set their work down, they begin to lecture, and the student's job is just to take notes. There's no interaction other than the professor providing the information. Well, when they get to college and they come to take their general studies classes, that's exactly what they see. So this new information, the actual experience of a college class, that is held up to their experiences that they had through movies or TV or wherever they built that initial schema, and they hold it up and they say, you know what, that works with my schema. That information is assimilated right in. So my experience matches what I thought I knew about it. Then they come into the College of Education, and we have students make name tags. We have students working in collaborative groups, and we have students talking and sharing and engaging with one another. We have them doing projects. And this is totally different from what their schema was for taking a college class. And so they either have to think, you know what, college classes can be this or this, my new idea, my new experience, or, you know what, I've got my understanding of college classes, and then I've got my understanding of College of Education classes. And those two ideas don't work. So I'm either going to accommodate my initial scheme, or I'm going to have to do an accommodation where I have a brand new scheme that I'm going to build. So you can see that students have to engage with activities. When we start talking about those connections, we've got to make sure that students have the opportunity to develop a lot of connections, and they need to be strong connections. If you think about putting students in a situation where they're going to best understand information, I want them to wrestle with ideas so that they are able to have emotional ties to the information, they're able to activate their prior knowledge, and then connect the new information to it. I want to have them have a relational understanding of concepts, a relational understanding of concepts, not an instrumental, not just a few connections, not just weak connections. I want them to have strong connections, and I want them to have a high number of them. So I think of this as I want a high number of high quality connections for students to really be able to understand information. So when we start thinking about how do we support students in our classes, we can start off with the classroom climate. I want students in a classroom that is learner-centered. That means it's focusing on students. I am a teacher, but I teach students. I teach students content. I'm not there to teach content. My primary goal would be students. I want it to be learner-centered. It's also a multi-dimensional classroom. And that means it's not this one level of understanding, one level of providing information, one level of interacting with information. I want students to know that I understand, let's say mathematics is a very multidimensional understanding concept, multidimensional understanding subject. So they're going to be able to show and learn in a variety of different ways. I want students to realize that they can be successful in my class. They need to perceive that, and they need to know that they can be successful, and that I'm going to be supportive of them as a teacher, and their peers are also going to support them. They're going to be supported and accepted. It needs to be a safe environment. That means it needs to have fair and consistent expectations and rules. Kids need to know what's expected of them. Mistakes are part of the process. We talked about that. Fear driving situations where information goes into that lower brain. Well, I want them to understand you're going to make mistakes. You don't have to have fear of making mistakes. You're not going to be embarrassed. You're not going to be put in a bad situation where you're being ridiculed for something that you don't understand. They know that mistakes are part of the process. And I want to provide frequent social emotional checks and support so that students are able to really thrive in that environment. So the classroom climate is one way that we're going to make sure to really make sure students are supported. I'm also going to be sure that I'm going to help students develop self-regulation. Self-regulation starts off with that self-awareness, noticing when I'm engaged, noticing when I'm not engaged. Students can do this, even very young students. If I teach them explicit self-regulation strategies, and I'm sure this will be talked on later, students can count to 10 when they start to become overwhelmed. They can do breathing activities. They can start to understand the idea of delaying gratification of, I'm going to work hard now, and later on I'm going to actually really be able to reap the fruit of those efforts. So it's extremely important that we do that. I'm also going to teach students about brains and how their brains process information, and the idea of neuroscience and how stress is not a good thing when it's too much, and boredom is not a good thing when they're not engaged enough. I want to make sure that they have a good understanding of those ideas. And then I want to make sure that students are using brain-friendly instructional strategies. And that's what I'm going to spend the rest of our time talking about today. So to start off with, I want to have clear and attainable learning goals and targets. So we started off with the learning goal for this particular presentation. And students needed to have the opportunity to know what they're getting into. We want to understand there's going to be low-level information and skills. This is information that we're going to acquire and understand. But I also want students to understand it on a deeper level and how it connects to larger ideas. This is important. I don't want to stop with just the basic understanding. And ultimately, I want to get them to the point where they have transferable knowledge and skills. And so when I'm saying transferable knowledge and skills, this means that I not only understand the information in one context, but I'm able to use it in a variety of contexts. I think we've all who've worked with students been in situations where students learn information and they can take a test when the information is presented exactly the same way and be successful. And then when they get in other situations, it seems that they forget or they don't have that understanding. Well, it's still there, but it wasn't set up in a way where it was transferable. They didn't have a variety of experiences in a variety of situations. They didn't have an understanding of how that information was going to be used and useful to students. So that is an extremely important idea to keep in mind. We want it to be transferable. We want to use a variety of assessment types and assessments in our classroom. I want to start off with pre-assessment, so I have a good understanding of where students are at when we start a unit or start a formal idea of study. I want to have both formal and informal assessments in this classroom. And so that means that I'm going to have tests and I'm going to have assessments, but I'm also going to do anecdotal types of things where I'm gathering information, I am doing observations, I'm doing interviews, I'm talking to students, I'm out among them as they're working and getting information. I want formative assessment data. Formative assessment data is going to be checks along the way as opposed to summative where I just gather information at the end. I want to know what students are understanding in the initial and in the middle and at the end so that I'm having them in a situation where that learning, that challenge is appropriate as they work. And I'm also going to have students involved in peer and self-assessment. When students are in collaborative groups, it's important that not only are they getting feedback from their teacher, but also from their peers and also from their own perspective. Also, we've all been in collaborative groups where someone wasn't pulling their load. I want to make sure that I'm able to give feedback on that. So that variety of assessment types is extremely important. I know I'm going quickly, but we've only got a short time today, so we're going to continue to go.
You're doing great.
So the next area that we're going to talk about with these instructional strategies is how do we capture and keep students' attention in our classroom? Engagement is a huge part of the process. So there's a lot of easy things we can do. First one is we want to activate prior knowledge. We talked about building those webs of understanding, right? Those cognitive schema. Well, if students are going to be able to take new information and compare it to the old information, we've got to give them opportunities to activate it. That can be done through KWL charts. That can be done through discussion of things that we worked on the day before or the week before, but activating that prior knowledge is paramount. Also, novelty is another way to pull kids in, to really hook kids. Your attention filter, those amygdala, are pre-programmed that when they see something new, that is automatically going to give it the new heightened sense of focus. So it's important that students get the opportunity to see novelty, to be engaged with things that they're not aware of, hadn't had exposure to. We want to use emotional hooks whenever we can make kids involved, and it doesn't matter what the age of students, but they care about the work. They're excited about it. We want to make sure to do that. If we meet and greet students at the door, which I would highly recommend, because one, it allows you to check in with students, but it also puts you in a situation to know who's having a good day, who's having a bad day, and you can attend to students and take care of that issue before their day gets started. But you can also start off with a topical riddle. You can give them a note card with a topical math problem to get them engaged and get them started with that learning right away. Allow for student choice. If you've got 3 activities planned for the day, and you've got an hour and a half to complete them, and the students are in your room for that entire time, it can be so powerful to give them the opportunity to vote on what do we want to do first, what do we want to do second, what do we want to do third. It just takes a moment, but when students have choice, when students are able to control some of the things in their environment, they're going to be a lot more engaged. So giving up those couple of minutes for a quick vote or quick survey can really pay off dividends in the end. Introduce with ideas with video clips or with songs. You can find a tremendous amount of things on YouTube that are related to whatever your subject of study is. When we can use those to, again, activate prior knowledge or to provide some novelty to really get students engaged and involved, to help them make some more connections, those are great things to do in our classes, and they're really easy to put in place so that students are able to engage. Also, when you have a good relationship with your students that you've worked on and developed and built, when you share things from your own life, that is going to be powerful information that students are going to use to be able to connect and engage with the subject that you're focusing on. Having them share their memories can also be a powerful way to do that. You should definitely infuse your presentations with humor and surprising visuals. When you're working with students, put something up that's going to intrigue them, to get them involved, to get them to think about that information in a different way. And then have students make predictions. This is going to, again, go right along with getting them to be engaged. When they have choice, that's powerful, but making a prediction about how you think things are going to work out or how things are going to finish up, those can be powerful ways to get kids to engage. And then you just check in with them throughout that unit of study so that they get an understanding of, this is where I started, these are some predictions that I made, and this is how we ended up. It allows them to make that connection in a really strong and powerful way. So a couple other ways that we can help students would be to provide graphic organizers. And graphic organizers, there's a variety of them that you can use. I talked about a KWL chart. This is a powerful one to use. But really, Venn diagrams can be great ways to organize information when we're comparing and contrasting. When students are putting information categorically into different ways, they're wrestling with that information. They're decomposing ideas, composing them in new ways, and helping make those strong connections. Another powerful way to do this would be through mind maps. When students are reading or they're watching videos or they're gathering information, when they can display things visually with a few words to convey meaning, that can be another powerful way to give students opportunities to really get a good understanding and to wrestle with that idea on a much deeper level. So using graphic organizers and mind maps are a great way to engage it. I have my college students complete mind maps when they're working on information. But I also had my elementary students back when I was an elementary teacher complete graphic organizers and mind maps to organize information because one, they wrestle with it on a deeper level, but two, they've got that information that they can save and revisit at a later time. Oftentimes when I have students create a graphic organizer or a mind map, I will have them start the next period where they get out, they look it over, and they pick out the top 2 or 3 ideas from the information that they gathered and share it with somebody. Because again, that's helping strengthen those connections. It's getting one more touch with the information, and they're having to prioritize information. So again, you can see it's an easy way to help students engage with that information, just one more opportunity. Now, we talked about multisensory learning. That's kind of one of the big buzzwords right now. And initially, people talked about left brain, logical, being good at math and language, or right brain where you're creative and artistic. And to be honest with you, this is way too simplistic. Both sides of your brain are engaged. So the idea of planning for your left brain students and your right brain students, that is way too simplistic. We want to be focusing on students, and we want to engage them with visual, kinesthetic, and auditory. Now, you can take surveys on this and find out whether people think that they're visual or kinesthetic or auditory learners. But that, again, is very simplistic. We don't want students to be focusing on one or the other. I want to provide information in a way so that I am providing it in a visual manner. I'm providing it in an auditory manner so that they can hear it. But I also want them to engage with it. The idea is good of presenting information in these different modalities, but the reasoning is wrong. It's not because one or the other works better necessarily for individuals. It's when I can provide a variety of those, then students are able to really learn that information on a much deeper level. So why do I start thinking about multisensory learning in terms of providing a variety of experiences? So if I'm working on developing a mathematical understanding, well, I might have students explain something in a context, or they're going to describe it as a narrative. Having them use, having them use manipulatives or physical tools, and then transferring that and drawing it can be great. Writing symbols can be a good way to use it, or draw a diagram. But all of these you can see are going to create a web of understanding, a web of experiences that are multisensory, so that when students are making all those connections, they're developing that cognitive schema or that web of understanding. They've done it in a way that really helps them understand information on a much deeper level. So multisensory teaching, learning is a great way to provide that opportunity. Now, how can we do that? Experiential learning is the great way to do it. Did you hear about experiential learning? It's a process of learning through experience. It's a big thing at UNK. It's a big thing in the world right now. It's more narrowly defined as learning through reflection on doing. So in other words, we want students to do and then reflect. And if we think about building those cognitive schema, if we think about building those web of understanding, when students are involved in collaborative projects where they're working with others, they're wrestling with information, they're presenting information in different ways, that is a great way to get them to promote those connections and really be able to understand it. But we can also, in math classes, teach through problem solving where students don't understand a concept. So I provide a problem to the whole class. Students get the opportunity to solve the problem. They may use manipulatives. They may use drawings or visual. They may use discussion. They can work by themselves. They can work with a partner. Then I start to pick students who are going to share their solution path with the others in the class, and then they see it, they hear it, they understand it. At the end of that experience, students understand the concept that they initially did not understand. Project-based learning is another one where students are engaged in any type of a project where they're working, developing, sharing information in a different modality. Performance-based learning tasks are great for students where they can show their learning. Maybe they're building something, maybe they're showing how they do something or how they use a particular resource. All these are great ways to showcase. Scientific inquiry, sometimes displayed at a science fair, is a good one. Or STEM or STEAM projects. If you think about science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, that's a STEAM project. And we think of that multimodality of learning, that's a great way to encourage our students to make those connections and to provide the opportunities for lots of connections that are strong connections because they own the learning. Using narrative or narrative patterns is another one. So if I'm going to have students learn about a historical event, I might have them use that narrative pattern of beginning, what was the problem, and then what was the resolution. That structure can allow students to organize things in a way that they understand and can work with it. I can also have students use similes or analogies to help them understand concepts, or make concepts more understandable by creating characters that represent different elements. So if we're studying the parts of a cell, I can have students talk about this relates to this character from this movie and this particular part. The mitochondria relates to this part of the movie or this character from the movie. I can have students translate their new learnings into a story or a dialogue. But again, having the opportunity to create a narrative is a great way to engage students with that information. Now, my last slide really deals with an easy way to pull this all together, and that's the video game model. And if we can use this in our classroom or elements of this, they are replicable so that students can be successful. So if we think about video games, why are they so enticing to students? Why are so many of our youth engaged and wanting to be engaged with video games? Well, video games has a goal, right? There's buy-in. Students want to be engaged with it because it's something they're interested in. It's something they're involved in. It's competency-based learning, and what that means is you move up a level when you start to achieve. I don't move up until I'm able to handle whatever level I'm on. Also, if I'm able to handle a level, I can move right through it. So it's that achievable challenge. Students are constantly in their zone of proximal development. Well, I can do that in my classroom by providing the scaffolding, by putting them in a situation where they're getting just the right amount of support to be able to be successful. I'm going to give frequent assessment and specific feedback. If you think about video games, you're constantly seeing badges that are earned or points that are earned for doing the right thing. Or maybe you lose points, or you lose life, or you lose something in the game because you're doing something wrong. Well, that's frequent assessment with specific feedback. I can do those same things in my classroom by providing that specific feedback that uses student names and lets them know what they're doing right and what they're not doing right. What happens in a video game when things are difficult? It gets more difficult. We often think about making education easy, but when students are achieving, they've released that dopamine because they're feeling good about their learning. They want more difficult work. They don't want things to get easier. So what does all this do? Well, intrinsic motivation. What does intrinsic motivation do? It releases dopamine. So the video game model can be a great way to engage. It can either be an actual video game, or I can use these elements to be able to provide experiences for students in my classroom. Last thing, what happens in this situation Well, learners start to develop a growth mindset. They attribute their success to their effort. They're able to persevere, and they're able to use strategies in a variety of ways because they've had a variety of experiences. We want to get away from that fixed mindset where learners do not believe that their effort matters. They don't work hard because they don't feel like they're going to be able to be successful. So, we're not going to be able to do this last part because we don't have a lot of time, but I do want you to think about a connection to something that you understand deeply, something that you truly understand that you've learned on your own, not a school learning, something that you understand from your background, something that you consider yourself an expert in. I bet some of the things that I talked about in this presentation came into play. So at this time, I'm going to open it up to any questions that folks might have.
And people, you're welcome to type a question in the chat room. That would probably be easiest to manage.
Great, let's do that. Go ahead and use the.
And while you're typing your questions, Chris, if I could just respond, thank you
Absolutely.
so much for your presentation. If I could just reflect a little bit, as a special ed teacher for 25 years, I learned that it takes 250 trials to learn something, well, to know it well. 250 trials, a lot of repetition. And I had problems with areas such as word problems in math.
Yep.
And teaching reading comprehension. Does that resonate with you?
It does. And again, I would just really encourage when we can have a lot of variety of experiences, and they're strong experiences that are tied to emotions, that are tied to things that students can predict, students can be involved with. The more they can wrestle with things on a deeper level, they're going to be able to understand that information. They're going to put it into long-term memory, and they're going to be able to access it later on, which are our goals. We want that transferable understanding of information. What questions do folks have?
I don't see any in the thing. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Cannell?
May I ask the serious question?
Please.
Yes. Is that Roy? Go ahead.
Okay. I'm very interested in peer gauge. I'm interested in the difference between the Vygotsky and what's the difference between them?
Right. Piaget and Vygotsky. Piaget put a lot more of his emphasis on the social aspects of students developing their understanding. Piaget was more about the experiences and the wrestling with the ideas, working through the particular stages that students are at. There is a lot of overlap between the two theorists, but the emphasis on the social aspect for Vygotsky is really the big deal for him. Language and social development. And Vygotsky really believed that if I don't have students that are working with somebody that's more advanced, then they're not going to be put in that zone of proximal development to really be able to understand concepts. Piaget was more about experience and moving through those different 4 stages of life that students work through. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, thanks, Dr. Christopher.
You bet. Thanks, Roy. Great question. Others? Here's one. It says, how to make learning more meaningful to students not having motivation. Great question. So the first thing is, again, when you've got a strong relationship with your students, when you have cultivated that, you meet them at the door, you ask them about their life, you let them see who you are as an individual, you connect with them, and they know that you're in your corner, that's going to provide some level of motivation, but not the whole thing. When I get to know students, if I can start to find concepts and put those presented in a vehicle that they're interested in, they're going to work much, much harder. Dr. Kretzer talked about word problems in mathematics and how that can be a real struggle for kids. A really simple way to get kids to engage more is take that same word problem and put students' names in the word problems in your class, because then they're, again, oh, that's about me. I'm going to be engaged with that. And if you can make the word problems deal with whatever they're interested in, let's say they're interested in, I don't know, scooters, or I've got a boy at home right now, he loves Pokemon cards. If I can have him solving those same problems, the context is what changes. The structure of the math problem doesn't change. So if I've got, I'll just give a simple example. of a join type problem, okay, for addition. So if I had a problem and it said something like Susie had 3 apples and her brother gave her 2 more apples, how many apples did she have in all? Well, that's a simple join type problem, but it's pretty innocuous and kids are really not that interested necessarily in apples. But my little guy, his name is Jack, he's 6 years old, he loves playing Pokemon cards. If I gave him the same problem and I said Jack had 6 Pokemon cards and his brother gave him 3 more, how many Pokemon cards does Jack have altogether? Do you see how all of a sudden students are interested? They're going to work harder. They're going to be a lot more engaged just by that simple strategy of making it relevant to students in their life. So when I know students and I've got that relationship, I'm able to put them in that situation so they're able to do that. How to make students engaged in project work in class. Again, when students have choice, they're going to be a lot more engaged. They're going to be a lot more involved with projects. You've got your overall expectations, or maybe you've got a rubric of what you want students to be able to do at the end. And again, that's the important part. What are the targets, right? What are the targets that I want my students to be able to do at the end of this project? Well, then you give them choice so that they're able to have control over how are they going to reach those targets? What are they interested in and what are they going to do to get there? Any other questions from the group?
Well, I want to thank you, Dr. Cannell, for your presentation. I want to thank some of the people that asked questions, Roy from Taiwan and my friend Harley, who's a chancellor in Indonesia. And I don't know Chamroon Pen, but I'm looking forward to meeting you as well. I see one more question for you, Chris.
Yeah.
How to motivate students to enjoy online learning, online
Great
class.
question. And you know what? A lot of it's the same thing. I've taught a lot of online classes. Last year with the whole COVID situation, my face-to-face classes became online classes overnight. And so I mentioned meet and greet students at the door. When I was an elementary teacher, every single day, I would be out in the hallway checking in with kids. Hey, how's your day going? Oh, looks like you're upset this morning. What's going on? And if I couldn't talk right then, I would make sure that I could follow up with them later. But that opportunity to touch base with each student is important. I do that with my college students. I meet and greet. I have a sign on my door that says, wait till I'm ready for you. As soon as I'm ready, I burst open the door. Come on in. I meet and greet them at the door. I'm asking them questions. I'm seeing how their day's going. I'm giving them a smile. And it's just a great way to touch base with them. Well, I do the same thing in my online classes. I open up class about 10 minutes early on Zoom. I always have music going. And as students come in, I greet them by name. I ask them what's going on. I ask them what they're engaged in. And then when we're in class, I want them to have a variety of experiences. And I want them to have a strong emotional connection to those. So I might show a little demonstration. Let's say we're learning about basic fact instruction. So I'm going to do a quick little presentation, or maybe I've got a video that I have them look at. Then I would send them off to breakout rooms, and they would access our learning management system, which we use Canvas. So in Canvas, in their small groups, they're going to together work on putting together a short little discussion board answer. Then I can look at those with the whole group and talk about, okay, this group did this, and this group said this, and this group is sharing this resource. I'm able to pull it together in a way when we get back as a large group that everybody's engaged and everybody's involved. But it's really the same ideas, just doing them a little bit differently. That make sense? Any other questions? How do you make or push slow students so they can learn and enjoy class with the smart student? Again, it's about how do I make things relevant to their life? Also, I know that Dr. Kritzer's got a million strategies and scaffolds to help students understand concepts. And I want every student in my class, pardon me, I want every student in my class to be operating in their zone of proximal development. It's not too easy. It's not too hard. They're appropriately challenged. So how do I do that? I'm going to understand my students and their needs. And if they're going to need a particular scaffold, Maybe they're going to need something read to them. I'm going to provide it for them. Maybe they need to work with a student that's a little more adept at typing information or sharing information or drawing. I'm going to try to really utilize their strengths so that they're able to all contribute, whether it's a collaborative group or individually, and they're all going to be able to achieve because I'm going to have the appropriate scaffolds in place for each one. How do you motivate students who are not always interested in attending online classes, especially during the pandemic? You know, that is a great question, and I'm going to give you the answer that most teachers don't want to hear. We have to make it engaging. We have to make it relevant. We have to make it enticing for them to be there. Now, I told you all my classes went to online last year. And we had 6 weeks of classes as we were finishing up the year. I only had one student out of 44 that missed one class out of all those times. Now, that is great attendance, and they were not there to see me. It wasn't because they think, that Dr. Cadell's a great guy. No. What they were thinking was, he has information that I want to learn. He has information that's going to be presented in an engaging way that I'm going to be involved and I'm going to be able to wrestle with it so that at the end of the day, at the end of our time together, I'm going to understand the concepts better. So I hope that answers your question. We have to do better. We have to be more engaging. We have to get them involved. We have to get them to buy in. Think of that video game model and those tenets. Pull those ideas out. Use those in your online classes just like you'd use them in a face-to-face experience. And I don't care what age group you're working with. Students want to be interested. They want to have choice. They want to be successful. They want to be challenged. When they have those things in place, they're able to do it and be successful. How can you create a classroom that works in a way the brain likes to learn? And I think if you go back and look through that PowerPoint and really process that, you can definitely get some good ideas. I would also say let's keep the conversation going. I'm happy to visit with you. You've got my email address. I also do some consulting. I'm going to go ahead and share the website in the chat. It's engagingonline.net. I've got some presentations. I even have one up there that's how to engage students in online classes. So if you'll get on and check that out, I think you'll find some there's a video there. I think it's a 30-minute presentation that I did last year on making online learning more engaging for all of our students. So you can check that out. Decreases students' outcome. What are the best instructional strategies? You know what? If you think of the pandemic and you think of social emotional learning and you think of that, how do we help information go to the upper brain and not the lower brain? The pandemic makes it really difficult. And that's where we've got to really attend to students and do frequent check-ins with them. Provide office hours where they can come and talk to you via Zoom. Provide opportunities for them to share how they're feeling. Surveys can be a great way to do that, either in Zoom or you can use a Google form where you just ask simple questions of how's your day going, and they have 3 responses. And if you've got students that are struggling, send them a supportive email or ask them to come during office hours so that you can check in and see how they're doing. But if you don't have that information, if you haven't gathered that information from them, you really can't support them in that way. So I think the pandemic really has made it a difficult situation for everyone involved. It's stressful, right? It's got unexpecteds. It's not predictable. And we're just fearing for our lives in many situations. So what can we do to help students? We can support them. We can care for them. Any other questions?
Dr. Giorgiano is asking about, and I'd like you to meet her. She's in one of our windows here.
Okay.
She's asking about the relationship to your topic to positive psychology. Where is it?
Yeah,
Hi, there you are. There she is. Wave hi, wave hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
She takes care of me
Yeah,
in
I'm
summer
good.
calm.
Very good. Yeah, positive psychology. I am no expert in that particular area, but the little bit that I've looked at, there's a lot of connection to it. I'm not talking about positivity that's just, hey, this is great, and everything you do is awesome, and everything you do is involved, and I love everything about you. This is authentic. Do you know what I mean? It's, I see you working hard. I appreciate the effort you're putting in. Look at the progress you're making. that's what focuses on that growth mindset. It's not about, I love you and I love everything you do and I'll hugs and kisses and bubbles all day long. That stuff wears thin. But true, authentic care, support, appropriate challenge, students know that you're there for them and that you've got their back. When we can minimize their fear of success in the classroom and they can trust you, that's when they have success. And so that's what I would say to you. There's a lot of overlap with positive psychology. Does that help?
Well, everybody, first of all, let's give Dr. Cannell a big round of applause. Thank you so much. So much for your presentation. Obviously a big success, so we got to get him to come back sometime.
Oh, I'd love to come back and visit with you.
You are signed up.
This is a heck of a party. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great Dr. Cannell. He has a day job to go to.
I got to get home to my 5 children to help them get ready for school. So
Okay.
Big day in our house.
I will see you later. Thank you.
10 o'clock. Thanks, sir. Everybody have a great experience, and thanks so much for your participation.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr.
Thank
Sampan
you.
and
Thank you.
Dwayne,
Thank you.
it is
Thank you.
your turn to present.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
I would like to introduce Dr. Sampan and his
Love you,
colleague
everyone.
Dwayne May from Kon University, a very fine university in Thailand. Really excited to make this connection, and it is all yours.
Thank you, Professor Jeff. I share my screen. Just a minute. Okay, can you see?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sampan Chin Vieng Thong, mathematics educator, Khon Kaen University, Thailand. I and my colleagues, Ajahn Duangmani Ya Ampan, she is a lecturer and mathematics educator at Khon Kaen University, Thailand, too. Thank you, Professor Jeff Gracious, to inviting us and your collaborative network to inviting us to present and sharing here. And thank you all of participants who are interested in joining us today. Today we will present our idea on teaching and learning mathematics entitled DIAS model for learning measurement in problem-solving classroom. Our presentation have 5 sub-content, and we separate into 2 parts. The first part I will present include the needs for changes in the mathematics classroom, and then professional learning community or PLC and problem solving classroom or PSC will be described, and then DIAS model related to our topic today. DIAS model for learning measurement will be explained. And the second part, Ajahn Duangmani will present and show you the detail of evidence from mathematics classroom and conclusion related to some aspect of diverse need of the student as a topic for the 3rd symposium. From the review literature in Thailand, the reason that support the needs for change the mathematics classroom in Thailand. In the case of Thailand, the year in a report, the year 2018 and 2019 report on education in Thailand indicate that when we compare to other country, the student achievement in Thailand considered is lower than the student in other country and international student. Most of mathematics teacher still teach mathematics by traditional way. The traditional way, I mean, in most of Thai mathematics classroom, the traditional way is lecturing and described by the teacher, explained by the teacher, and giving some example, and student to record the student to remember all the content that the teacher delivered to them. That is the not certified in Thailand. When we consider in the last PISA result, the PISA 2018 result, the Thailand Thai student get the order 66 from 77 economies participate in the PISA 2018, and we found that the Thai student get the score lower than international student average score, and it is not satisfactory for Thai educator. We try to change the mathematics classroom and also science and other classroom too. And when we looking close to the real classroom, especially in mathematics classroom, this scenario we found that the Thai student get in the traditional classroom, you could see in the picture, although teacher arrange the student into group, however, the student have diverse interesting. You can see some student do worksheet, some student do something, some student focus on blackboard and teacher, and also some students sleep on the table. And that's the reason that why we need to change the mathematics classroom. And the policymaker proposed the Thai teacher need more focus on new approach of teaching, learning, and professional learning, especially mathematics learning reform in Thai classroom require effective approach which can change the teacher teaching and also the student learning. The idea of professional learning community was being introduced for Thai teacher since 2018. However, it was still during the effort time for effective implementation of the idea of PLC in Thailand. The PLC is a community of practitioners who collaboratively engage in continuous cycle of inquiry-based teacher learning. This is the core idea of PLC. And another idea, when we consider the PLC as a cycle of professional learning, in Thailand, we adapt the idea PLC in practical. We have a three important step. That is the plan. When implement to do plan the lesson plan and and then bring the lesson plan to the classroom and observe what happened in the classroom, and then reflect and talk about how to improve the student learning and how to improve teacher teaching. And this is a figure show the real picture from the classroom when Thai teacher plan the lesson together and implement the lesson. The one teacher bring the lesson to teach student and other member in group observe what happened in the classroom, and then they reflect together and rewrite the lesson to next cycle. And another idea is we need the new teaching approach. In the case that my study, we use problem-solving classroom. The problem-solving classroom, or PSC, is a classroom in which built by using problem-solving approach as a teaching approach. So it is a well-known theory of teaching for developing children who learn mathematics by themselves and for themselves. And there are 4 steps in PSC, 4 steps of teaching, including of the first one is problem posing. The teacher poses the problem to the student, and then the student solve problem by themselves. The second phase is the independent solving by the student. And then the idea of student was bring to discuss on the blackboard, comparison the idea and discussion the idea of the student. And the last one, summarization about the student idea, about how to solve the problem. This is a 4 step. The scenario show the teacher and student when they when the teacher teach by problem solving approach, and the student learn by problem solving approach too. And the idea, another idea, when we consider when we teach measurement as a one of content, specific content in mathematics, that as model. And before that, why we teach measurement? Measurement is a tool and skill have a variety of use in everyday life, and important in providing link between strength of mathematics and provide link between mathematics and other school subject too. And in teaching mathematics, especially measurement, the mathematics teacher need to understand the model for teaching measurement before they go to the classroom and teach their student. And that as model for learning measurement by the critical review and my study too, I synthesize the model for learning measurement. That is D is a direct comparison, and I is the indirect comparison, and A is a battery unit, and S is a standard unit. That is the 4 step when the student learn measurement. And evidence from the mathematics classroom is the second part. Ajahn Dongmani will present and detail for this part. Please, Ajahn Dongmani.
A very good evening to everyone. My name is Juangmani. I'm a mathematics lecturer in Konkan University. Thank you so much, Dr. Jeff and Dr. Sampan, for inviting me to be part of this third symposium. These coming 15 slides, I will be presenting evidence which are photo taken from Thai primary mathematics classroom from 3 grades that are grade 2nd grade, 4th grade, and 6th grade consecutively. The topics are length, area, and volume. Let me begin with the 2nd grade Thai mathematics textbook. This topic is about length. The student will be assigned to compare. Next slide, please. Compare the Play-Doh. They will make their own Play-Doh into a snake, and the teacher asks them to compare with whose snakes are longer or the longest. The first step from the DIAS model is direct comparison. So the students, if you look at the photo on your left hand side, the two girls compare the Play-Doh, the red one and the yellow one, by put it aside, and they will use the sense to judge that which are longer. Another photo, boy groups, they will try to make a Play-Doh into the longest one, the black snake, the red snake and the yellow snake. So this one we call from the DIAS model is called direct comparison. Let's move to another step, which are indirect comparison. Indirect comparison, the student have to employ or think of the unit that they used to, or they really feel familiar to. In this sense, they try to compare the longest snake. So the boy look at themselves and found that they have the school belt. So they took off the school belt and make it in chain, put it in chain to compare the Play-Doh snake. Another slide. And another one from the DIAS model is arbitrary unit. Arbitrary unit that the student will have to think about which unit that they use to make a really precise comparison. That again, from these 3 steps, they really can't tell the right answer. So they have to think about the standard unit, which are the ruler. Another slide, please. The ruler. So from this, they will compare the rubber by using a ruler, and they will have to learn that to compare the length of something. They will have a unit, that standard unit. In this case is centimeter. So the rubber length is 2 centimeters. Another evidence from mathematics classroom are the 4th grade. The 4th grade mathematics classroom is about area. The book, the Thai mathematics textbook, is about how to compare the cross. If you look at the small rectangle here, the number 1, the student will have 2 cross, the white one and the red one. So the teacher will ask them to compare the 2 cross. Which one is bigger? Another slide, please. Which one is bigger? So the teacher bought them the real thing. So they will put it, juxtaposition, put it together to compare which cross is bigger. So this is called direct comparison. And when they have to think about the arbitrary unit that they have to, measure the length of the picture frame. This one is picture frame, the rectangle one and the square one. So when they have to compare the picture frame, they think about, oh, like Professor Christopher just educate us that you have to engage student into the problem. So the teacher put the photo of teacher, students. So they will put the photo of student one by one to measure the area of this rectangle and this square. Another slide, please. And this one called arbitrary unit. Another one is standard unit. Yep. When you have two square, the paper, the blue paper number the A paper and the B, and the paper B, paper A. So when you have to compare paper A and paper B, which one is bigger? So the student have to learn about standard unit, and they make square centimeter and use the standard unit to measure the rectangle and the square. So for them to compare these two paper, they will come out that paper B is bigger than paper A, 1 square centimeter. Another evidence from math classroom is grade 6. Grade 6. Oh, the time is running out. It's about
You're
gelatin.
fine.
Gelatin.
You're fine. You're fine.
Oh my God.
Don't
Okay,
worry.
okay.
Don't worry. We like it.
Okay. this sixth grade Thai mathematics textbook is about volume. So the volume, this lesson is about which gelatin is bigger. Which gelatin is bigger. So the teacher bought them the real gelatin, the red one and the green one. The red one and the green one. So again, for direct comparison, they have learned from grade 1 that, well, we have dias model. So let's put it juxtaposition, put it together. Wow, we could see that the green gelatin is bigger. So let's cut it out. So they cut it, the student cut the green gelatin out, and they put the red gelatin and green gelatin aside. This is equal. That means that the part that they cut it out means that the green gelatin is bigger than the red gelatin. Another one, please. Yep. And they have the cube, the cubic one cubic centimeter. So they put it as the arbitrary unit. And arbitrary unit. Next slide, please. Yep. And they have learned that, wow, this cubic we can use to measure the volume of gelatin. Let's think about formula that we can calculate the volume of gelatin. So the basic formula for the area of rectangle shape is length multiply width multiply height. So they come out that from this, they can multiply the width, the length, and the height, and for this cubic, they come out that for formula, and they come out with the answer of 24 cubic centimeter. Now we propose you our conclusion that teacher need to change their teaching approach to new teaching approach that emphasize meaningful learning for students. And the PLC and PSC are reckoned for mathematics teacher to consider implementing them both in their teaching. In PSC, the mathematics teacher has to encourage the student to have their problems. Then they need to solve problem by themselves. They engage in the problem that they really used to solve solve. So by employing this approach, the student learn mathematics by and for themselves and make it very meaningful for their life. In order to teach the substance measurement meaningful and effectively for students, we propose you the DIAS model, that is a model for teaching measurement to apply for teaching the substance of measurement. DIAS model is a model for teaching measurement that used to design the lesson plan for students to learn direct comparison, indirect comparison, arbitrary unit, and standard unit. The student could apply the DIAS model to learn mathematics effectively. That is all for our presentation tonight. If you have any comments, any suggestion or questions, feel free to ask us. And this DIAS model, we put it as the article that Professor Dr. Sampan put it here. You can download it from the website. Thank you so much for your
That's great.
attention. Any question, please, or any
Why
suggestion?
don't we put some questions in the chat box for Dr. Sampan and Dwayne? And I have a question to start off with. Dr. Sampan, could you show that second slide again?
The second slide.
Yeah, you were comparing countries and I wanted to see that again. Huh? Are you able to share?
Sorry. The second slide about the comparison.
Yeah.
The PISA result, right?
Right. So I'm looking, my country is not doing very well. But who takes this test?
OECD.
When did they take it? I mean, who takes it? High school seniors?
Yeah, the PISA for the eighth grade. The student who.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps I don't know, but maybe Singapore and China, maybe they don't have special ed students in their room like we do. That might make a difference, don't you think?
Yeah.
Huh? I'm just wondering what you thought.
For the case of Singapore, right?
Well, I mean, in general, not every country has special ed kids. So maybe that's part of the reason that some countries do worse than others. I don't know. And look at Japan. Doesn't that surprise you? I don't know. I'm just thinking. Are there any questions in the box? I believe that might be Indonesian. I don't know Indonesian. Dr. Early, can you help me with that? Or Dr. Rixpa? You see that question, Woi Pada? No?
In the case of Indonesia, I think Indonesia, especially in PISA test, has a low score because the student here is not really thought by how to make logic, how to make reading more meaningful. That's why our education system at the moment, we are trying to make the PISA score more higher. Yeah. PISA is mainly about how to measure between science, math, and reading. And sometimes here we cannot perform very well the concept of theory and the practice. So that's why our score in Indonesia, it means not included in that list. Yeah, I think that's my understanding. I don't know
I understand.
about
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I
Maybe
want to, are there
Risma
other,
can
I'm sorry.
Risma can
Hello? Okay.
yeah, I think that's all from me.
Okay, I want to thank our presenters from Con, Satpan, and Dwayne and Nate. Everybody, let's give up.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see
Very
the screen
nice.
again. Let's see that
Thank
screen
you,
again.
Dr. Sampan.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you very
so,
much.
everybody give it up for them. And
Thank you very much.
now I would like to introduce Dr. Nishio.
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm
Hello, Dr. Nishio, where are you?
here.
Let me see. I'm looking for you. Let me see.
Hello.
And
Hello.
are you able to
That's
share
was.
your?
Yeah, I'll share my slide. Okay.
All right.
No, host canceled my
I'm
sharing
looking.
the presentation.
Oh,
So
there you are.
Can you? Because I changed my slide a lot, so I want to share by myself.
Okay.
But I cannot do that because I think the post canceled to share.
Oh, okay, hang on. Let me do that. Okay, wait. Time out. I know how to do this. Where are you? Okay. Where is he? Wait.
Risma, how are you?
I know. I'm looking.
No,
Wait.
I cannot do that.
Nishio. There he is.
Maybe easier by looking by the participant, and you can.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh yes. Wait 1 second. It's coming. Hang on.
Here.
There he is. Okay. All right.
Can I share no?
And co-host. There you go. Sorry, everybody. Here we go.
Okay.
Technical difficulties.
No, it's not slide mode. So okay.
There we go. Dr. Nishio.
It's what are you looking at my slide mode or not?
Yes.
So I can
You're good.
change.
You can share. There we go.
How to do that? So
show start presentation.
Yeah. It's me.
Okay.
Should because that is so. Alright. How to do that? This one. It's very annoying. This one. Sure, I know. Sorry, I cannot start my slide mode.
Yes.
Okay,
right.
Finally. But I cannot see my. Wait. So how?
You got it. It looks good.
So I want to cancel that full display mode. But how to cancel that?
No, it looks good.
No, I cannot do it by my script. What can I do? Slide mode. I cannot change my slide mode.
I think it's okay.
wait. Slide, this is, but after sharing my slide, automatically starts slide mode. How to do that? I cannot do anything. Okay, I speak by myself. Okay, thank you. I'm Akihiro Nishio. I'm a psychiatrist and professor of Japanese University, Gifu University. So I don't belong to the educational sector, so I'm not so sure what I'm going to talk is what you need or you want to know, but I'll try that. So, okay, how to go to next slide. I think you know very well the special needs education, so I'll skip this slide. Okay, I'm very sure you know very well Convention of the Right of Person with Disability. So yeah, that's right. So I'm very sure you know very well education for all movement. So I'll start from this slide. People with disability, you can imagine how many percentage of people, children has a disability. So this slide says around 12 to 15% of the population, children, has some kind of the disability or needs a special education. So this slide shows that is a statistic from the US. So this slide shows percentage of the all disability. Total disability rate is 12.9%. And yeah, look at individually. Visual impairment is 0.1. Hearing impairment is a bit more, 0.2. Deaf and blindness, so both disabilities very, very rare. Intellectual disability is around 1%, 0.9. So that is a very huge number. No? Developmental delay or autism children is around 1%. Emotional disturbance, 0.7. Speech or language impairment, specific learning disability. That is the most big percentage, 4.5%. Or other impairment is like that.
Is that Japan or the world?
Mm-hmm.
Japan or the world?
That is a US data. But it
US.
says that, yeah, but each country has almost same percentage of disabilities. So,
okay.
So I just use the US data because that is very easy to take that and compare. Okay. So I think you know very well that visual impairment, can imagine hearing impairment and speech disability and physical disability. That is, we can see directly, so we can very easily imagine. However, the developmental disability or emotional disturbances or learning disability is somehow very difficult to understand, and that number of the children who has those disability is more than visual or hearing disability. So we should focus on those disability. So developmental disability, I'm very sure you know very well, but I repeat here. So developmental disability is referred to the variety of conditions that interfere with a person's ability. We have a lot of intellectual abilities. So one or two some ability have some problem. That is a developmental disability, imbalance of the ability. So most common developmental ability disability is autism. High functioning autism is also same. So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is very common disability. So yeah, from here, I mentioned the current situation of Japan. In my countries, we have a so huge number of the special education school. Look at the left slide, left figure. visual, we have a visual disability class, 86 classes, and audio disability class, 118. Intellectual disabilities class is 673. Physical handicaps, around 300. Serious handicapped. Serious handicapped means so usually they cannot move and they are usually hospitalized and get some education in hospital, very special hospital connected to some school. So total number of children who get education in special school is around 141,900 kids. Look at the right figure. I counted the special classes in general school, regular school. I think that almost every, except for very small school, almost every school has a special school in those school. So that number of the kids who are educated there is visual disability, 500 kids. Nowadays, that number is very decreasing. They usually get a normal education in general setting, okay? Audio disability is 1,900. Intellectual disability is a very big volume here, 113,000. Physically handicapped, serious handicapped, language disability, emotional disturbances. Emotional disturbances usually is like developmental disabilities. Children are included in this category usually. So total number of the children who studied in special school is 235,500 children. So yeah, and nowadays the particularly inclusive education setting became very popular here in Japan. So just compared to 5 or 3 years ago, that number, yeah, just 3 or 5 years ago, that number is very limited, around just hundreds or like that. But the number is dramatically increasing now. So partially inclusive education setting means that children studied in regular class, in regular school and regular class, but sometimes they have special training. For example, for visual disability children, the teacher teach some how to say that. So how to say that special words, no? Special, or for listening for audio disability children, the teacher, the school teaches that sign language like that. So partially inclusive education setting, it became very dramatically increasing now. But the total number is 109,000. So among all of the children, handicapped children, that percentage is also very limited. Okay, that is data, comparison data between Japan and Thai. So I wrote some article, an article comparing the Thai and Japanese data with Dr. Jirapon channel last year, I think. I cited that data here. So population is Japan is twice more than Thailand, but the area is Thailand is grander than Japan. So big difference is the number of special schools. In Thailand, 48 special schools, but here in Japan, more than 1,000. And the special school, so number of the students who studies special school is also very much more here. And special class, the number of special class is very, very many here. So, however, in Thailand, the number of the students in partially IE setting, so studied in regular class and regular school is very predominant. So that's the strategy of the government. Educational strategy is totally different between Thai and Japan. That is also very, very interesting data from Cambodia, because I took that data, I was given that data from Cambodian government, so I also wrote that. I also wrote an article. So if you are interested in this data, please look for this using my name and the Cambodia. You can search for my article. So in Cambodia, the visual impairment, huge and speech. So, but the most predominant disability is emotional disturbance in primary school. I don't check, so I don't see the detail of the Cambodian data. So that is also very interesting, no? So how to find that those children. This is a questionnaire to find the children with intellectual disability. For example, the question number 1 is, can he express himself well with words as compared to other children of the same age? Does he seem unable to do what other children of the same age can do, like that? Using this questionnaire, the Cambodian teacher identifies who has the problem, intellectual problem, and report to the central government. However, so service for those children is very limited in Cambodia. So total number of the classes. First figure is for visual impaired children. Only 78 classes, and the number of the students who studied there is 243. For hearing impaired children, the 50 classes nationwide, and 483 children studied in special school. So for children who has intellectual disability, there is no public school for them. So just private school, kind of NGO school, provided the special education for them, but that number is really limited, and that private school is located only in Phnom Penh capital. So for developmental disability, that is also NGO school provided. That NGO school is operated by parents group. Accidentally, I think that Western people, Canadian, I'm not so sure, but Canadian parents has some children who has a developmental disability there. So that parent started operating that very private institute to educate them. So there is no public school or institute there. So that is a reality. So Japan and I think the Western country like US or European country has a huge number of the special school nationwide and provided a lot of service. But we cannot do that usually, generally. So my main question discussion is, how should we handle so many children with disability in our country? So I would not like to say that the Japanese strategy is very well. So I just introduce our country's data and strategy, and I just hope that you yourself thinks about that strategy in future. Okay, strategy of Japan is we have about the mental health. Usually, mental health problem in school are divided in two problems. One is the intellectual disabilities. generally speaking, intellectual disability children are handled in school, usually special school or special class. Serious mental problem, for example, just mental illness like depression or anxiety is not so problematic. So, serious mental problem, serious autism, or like that, are handled in medical sector and school. But every school has their own mental health support system. That I will show that system. Okay. That is a typical timetable. I cannot read. The tip of the times table for intellectual disability student. That is an example of grade 2 student. So orange one is learning, SC meaning a social education. So orange one is not not the main subject. And the white one, mother tongue, math, and PE, physical exercise. So language, they are main subject. So generally speaking, the classes provided there is half of those social skill training like that, and half are main subject. And main subject also has a lot of physical activities, for example, physical education or music or arts. So, so the education for intellectual disability is like that. So they are very different from regular classes. But other children with physical disability or visual impairment, hearing impairment, gets the same classes, same subject with regular classes. But only intellectual disability children, that timetable is very different. So yeah, in my country's children with very intellectual disability, children also advance to high school level. High school is also special school. So usually they get the job occupational training there. So that is, in my country, we can get very easily the job position because of the aging society, the decline of the young generation, number of young generation. So they train, left side shows some technical training to work in factory in future. And usually the young women like to work in service industry. So they train to how to serve a cafe or water like that in restaurant. So usually, generally speaking, they can get that job opportunity after graduating their high school, special high school. And that is a very solid way to go. About the mental health treatment, every prefecture has, this picture shows medical center very specialized for children with disability. So every prefecture has such center and hospital, and it's connected to the special school. So also every school, every prefecture has universities, hospital, and some hospital provides a special treatment for children. Also clinics. So usually the parents find some difficulty or some problem difference of their children and bring their children to the medical services and get treatment. That is very common story here. So that treatment is not so well structured like school, special school, because that is medical. So it totally depends on the doctor how to treat them. But generally speaking, the treatment, the doctor follow to the kind of guideline. So treatment for children are not so different everywhere, I think. That is a system every school has. If student has a mental health problem, school counselor has a big role. School counselor, in my country, school counselor means a psychologist. That point is very different from other countries. In many countries, school counselor means a guidance counselor or a guidance teacher who support daily scene or daily support for children. However, in my country, school counselor means a psychologist, clinical psychologist. So they only provide a psychological approach to solve the psychological problem. That is very different point. So that is has a main role in my country. And school social worker is not so common. They only come to school only once a month like that. School counselor is part-time job, but they usually come to the school 1 or twice a week. Very different point of Japanese system is we have the yogo teacher. Yogo teacher is like school nurses. But yoga teacher has a very special educational license, but studied some medical thing. Usually they work in the, so how to say, nursery room, so medical room, so infirmary, and they don't teach so much. Their class they have is only very limited to health subject. So they usually work in infirmary and handle some student concern or health problem. However, the yoga teacher is permanent position and that job is full-time. So yoga teacher is every time there. And so student can come easily to talk about their problem, or usually that's a mild thing. So about the friendship with mates or relationship with the parents, like that. So this yoga teacher and school counselor have a big role in school, Japanese mental health school support system. That is, I think, very interesting points. Already conclusion. So conclusion, we have 3 levels services for children with mental health problem. One is a well-structured special school for intellectual disability students. And medical services for severe cases, usually is for parents bring their children to go to medical services. So usually we don't share that information with school. That is a big problem. And also each school has their own mental health support system. Usually in those systems support mild cases. We have 3 levels of support system. That's all. Thank you for listening. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Nishio. So I noticed that somebody mentions autism. Would you like to comment on that and dealing with that?
Autism, I explain autism. Autism is very difficult to explain, but children who have some communication problem. It is said that autism children cannot imagine in the shoes of children, so cannot have the perspective of other people. Imagine. Usually, for example, I say something here, but I also imagine that other people think, how do other people think or consider me? I can think of that. However, that autism children, autism people cannot imagine that thing. So that difficulty leads communication difficulty and problems. That is very common, no? The number of cases children are very low here, and I think it's in many countries. So we should more focus on those children, I think.
Dr. Nishio, do you think that Western television has changed the behavior of Asian children?
Western society, Western television. You said Western television?
Well, I mean, you know, are children in Asia more behavior problems now than they used to be? Or is it the same? Or what do you think?
Yeah, because in Asian countries, so I think it's same in Japan and other Asian countries. Our teaching style, educational style is very different from European countries. Students just have to listen to the teacher and repeat what the teacher says. So yeah, it's a very traditional approach, educational approach. So in Asian countries, teachers don't like the very special behavior, or student don't obey to the teacher's order, and student do the very different, do something differently. That's why we very focused on the autism disorder. However, in European country, there are a lot of varieties, so every student does differently. So the culture, the school accepts that behavior.
Right, more diversity, huh?
Yeah.
Right. I noticed there's a question from Sophie. How can we notice that one kid autism, or I don't know, maybe they mean the difference between an autism kid or an LD kid?
So I think diagnosed as autism in Asian country is very different from the America or European country. So in Western countries, some students who are not considered autism can be diagnosed, can be considered as autism here, especially in Japan, I think.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Nishio? Well, I really want to thank you for joining us today and being one of our partners.
Yeah.
Let's give him a big hand, everybody. Why don't you turn off? There you go. Everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we have our last but not least, we have Dr. Rixma and EN ready to present to us. Rixma, have you got your PowerPoint ready to share? Let me help you share it. Hang on one second.
Thank you. It is our pleasure to join with you all.
Okay, so, I'm going to make you a co-host. There you go.
Okay,
and it's really a pleasure to introduce my new friend and colleague, Dr. Rixma, as well as EN presenting together today.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Once again, it's a pleasure for me and for EN to join the discussion, the symposium. Yeah. So it's a great presentation from USA, from Thailand, and also Japan just now, where every presenter has shared about how to educate or give some services for diverse need of students. So maybe from Indonesia, it will be quite a little bit different because I would like to share about how the special education actually start until today. So as you know that, okay, sorry. Okay, Indonesian is an archipelago country with an extensive territory like about 7.81 million kilometers. So it's a huge, so it between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. So, and we also have a very, a very large island. We have 5 big islands, but we also have a quite huge 17.504 islands. So when you come to Indonesia, Jeff, you should come for at least 3 big islands in Indonesia. Yeah. So
Okay, here I come.
sure, and also everybody welcome. Yeah, and we are divided into 34 province. So we also have like this picture I show you that we have 340 ethnic. So, and the population, yeah, you can see 268 million. So in that, what you call it, population, we have around 31.6% children. So you can say like about 84.4 million children in Indonesia. And it was range about 0 until 17 age. So we are talking about diverse student. We can say about, is it sex like female or male, because it's uh, in Indonesia history, female cannot go to school before the independence, but now, yeah,
What
we
year
can.
was that?
What?
I'm sorry, what year was that?
1945.
Okay, it's been a while.
Okay, so as we have so many ethnic, it also become a very diverse student. We have a different language, we have a different style, not only learning style, but also the culture. So it is very, very diverse. And religion also, we have like 5 religion, the biggest population, and also about how to joy and how about hope and ambition. And if we are talking about the special students, special educational needs student, we are talking about the ownership, about the physical, about the ability, about the mental and emotion. So, and from this start, I would like to show that this is the map of Indonesia. So the archipelago means even if we have like 5 big islands, but most of the population was stay in Java. West Java is around here, okay, is around here. So not so many people in Kalimantan, in Sulawesi, and also in Papua. So many people start, they come to Java, or now it's Sumatra also has become one of the big population in Indonesia, but it makes that how the education also not so equal in every island. And the thing is, the prevalences of special needs student in Indonesia, about 1.6 million. The most is we have the mental retardation, hearing impairment, multiple disability, physical handicap, visual impairment, spectrum disorder, and others. So,
Excuse me, Rixma, you don't have LD?
yes, we have. Actually, LD we are having in regular school, mostly.
Go back to the previous slide.
Sure.
I don't see LD.
Yes, I would like to show you in this. Okay, we have the learning difficulties here. This is about 130, sorry, 103, and then in national it's quite big. See, 412. So learning disability actually we can find it not in a special school but irregular school.
Okay.
Okay, so and also this why I also would like to share about this population, this number, that many issue that we are starting the, okay, let's see. Okay, the distribution of the institution. We are most of them were joining in the mild and the moderate went to the inclusive school, where the student itself, the pupils go to the special school. So it is quite a lack of institution available for the student. So, but like I said, that after the independence, where the government tried to make a difference, like, yeah, we have a right for education, like we have the disability legal perspective that many law and act, yeah, were having by the government, how to every citizen have the same quality of education, a citizen with physical, emotional, mental, and intellectual or social disability that can enter the school. So where this, we have a changes paradigm, where the medical models that at the first place that health condition, because we know about the impairment that someone with has yeah, we can say the organs has some problem, it was make the individuals is become a problem. But in social model that we see the interaction between people living with the impairment and the environment filled with physical, attitudinal, communication, and social barriers, we are seeing the environment become a problem. So this is also our awareness now that in many years ago, like maybe in around 70 or to 80, many children with disability just stay at home. They didn't go to school because it was like become stigma to the family. So this is where the government and also the academician start to make the paradigm change, that we have to see the terminology also, that even there is an impairment, when we give them some accessibility and we give them some services, that the children or the people with that impairment, it also can join with the social activity. So this is also changing the education services model. So, and now we are going to have that as a historical, like I said, about around 1970, when the student or the children with the impairment can go to this regular school, but with the still integration phase, where the curriculum and the student go in the same curriculum, but it will be explained by An next in the next slide. But this is actually the segregation or exclusive model that very strong in Indonesian special education services, actually, where the children has the impairment, so the parents usually choose go to the segregation, while like I said, the Indonesian map, that special school usually only in the province. There's no special school in some small region. So it is quite difficult for them to get an access to go to school. But now, after the integration, now around 2000, we start with inclusive education, where maybe same around the world, that how the regular school can also provide, but we also have facing many challenges. So after this, that I would like Anne to share about the how we are serving the education. But yeah, like I said, government also play a very big role about these changings. Even the inclusive education for the first time seems being like a top down. So it become the government project, and every school just has to be pushed to accept the student in their school. And there is some kind of challengings because in some ways the teachers was not fully prepared or fully ready to accept the children. But the ministry will like preparing the teacher and education in the division of teacher and education personnel, and in the division of special education, they make some in-service training and also collaboration with the like institute, like the university, higher education, while we are preparing the ins and pre-service training. And now we also make some how to strengthen the profession of the teachers profession. So after they are graduation from the higher education, so they also need to take the profession of before they're entering the school. So after this, I would like to ask Anne how to share about the mechanism of education services. And please.
Let's welcome again.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Hi, Resma.
Yes.
Hi, Resma. Could I ask you a few questions?
Yes, sure.
Okay. The first question is that do you have the special teachers in mainstream school?
Okay.
To
Good
teach
question.
to teach the students with disabilities, or you in your schools, the regular teachers are responsible for teaching them.
Yeah. Okay, you will hear the explanation from Anne after this.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
But it's a good question.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rixma, and thank you, Professor Jeff,
Hello.
for these opportunities. In this moment, I would like continue to explain our presentation. Focus of my explanation is mechanism of special education services in our country. As explained by Dr. Rixma, that in our country have three forms of educational services for students with special needs. Here are a setting of segregation, integration. Before slide, Rixma, I'm sorry. Okay. Segregation, integration, and inclusion. Generally, educational services mechanism for students with special needs start with the admission of registration. Next slide, Burisma. Yes. Okay. Okay. Start from admission of registration of student at the new academic years, and the next step, the learning process, and finally the evaluation. So let's start explaining the procedure of special education services in the segregation setting. Segregation carried out in special school. It is the first educational service for students with special needs in Indonesia, start from 1970 until now. The school model is grouping based on the type of student with special needs. For example, special school A for children with visual impairment, B for hearing impairment, C for intellectual disabilities, D for physical handicap, and so on. In a segregation setting, have a special curriculum that design based on the type of grouping of students with special needs. And of course, in segregation setting, students can learning with special teachers. Mostly of their teacher have special education degree. In general, the registration of new students in Indonesia from preschool to secondary level start in June. But in special school, admission flexible, so it can be done all the time. Students who will enter to register can include recommendation from experts such as a psychologist, doctor, and other. So next slide, Burisma. So after student accepted, teacher will conduct assessment for learning of them to find out profile student, the need of learning objective, condition, and find the learning needs. So teacher can collect information from expert, parent, and teacher can collect data, does the test, observation, and interview. So teacher can result data about personal identified, and then family, ability, learning style, behavior tendencies, intelligence, physical motor, emotional, social, and so on. After assessment, teacher design learning program development, show lesson plan based on curriculum adapted to the condition of student. Of course, learning program development consists of goal, theory, process, tools, media, and evaluation. Evaluation of learning in special schools adapted to student condition. Adaptation can make on technical aspect, instrument, assessment criteria, and so on. Of course, the assessment carried out periodically based on material achievement, midterm assessment, semester, and year-end assessment. And so parent will receive report at the middle of the semester, the end of semester, and the end of the academic years. So let's move on the next slide. Okay, this is a mechanism of education service integration setting in Indonesia. For setting integration carry out in regular school, collaboration with school, collaboration with special school to prepare students for entering regular school. In integration setting, curriculum student with special need, same with all students. Student learning with general teacher, and sometimes a special teacher from special school visit to regular school for help need learning children. It's mostly accessed by student with visual impairment without cognitive impairment at the secondary and high school level. Registration student at a new academic year start in June. Student who will enter to register as new student, it must be have ready some with other student. At this present, the integration setting has turned inclusive setting. So let's see next slide. Next slide, Purisma.
This is the inclusive setting.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, this is education service in inclusive setting in Indonesia. Inclusive setting carry out in regular school, at the preschool, primary school, secondary, and even higher education level. School must accept the diversity of their student, including student with special need. So student with special need can study in school that close to them. Student learning with all peer and then learning and general teacher. Some schools have special teacher, but mostly do not. Our government encourage regular school that have students with special need to ask to special school as resources center. If a regular teacher had challenge or upscale that can make consultant and collaboration. In our government system, we provide special officer that also help admission and training for shadow teacher and so on. Admission at new academic year start from June to all students and with a special quote or by comparison for students with special needs. And in higher education services, students can enter through special channels or quotas and achievement path. And next slide, Burisma. In inclusive education setting, after student accepted, teacher will conduct identification and assessment for learning of them to placement class, find out profile student, the need of their objective condition, and find their learning needs. After identification and assessment, teacher design adaptation curriculum and learning program development to lesson plan based on curriculum adapted to the condition of the student. There are several types of curriculum model in inclusive education. Duplication, modification, substitution, and omission model. The evaluation of learning outcome is adjusted to the upscale. It can be compared or using different techniques with peers in the class. And modification in evaluation can be made in the form of content, technique, time, and so on. So let's see about model of modification curriculum in our countries. The first is duplication. Duplication is in duplication, the curriculum for children with special needs, same of the general curriculum. And the next for modification, general curriculum change to adjust the need and abilities of students with special education needs. And for a substitution model, some part of general curriculum are created but replaced by something less more equal. And the next one is omission model. Some part of the general curriculum are created at all because it is not possible for students with special needs. Okay. Even though Indonesia is moving toward inclusive education, we still continue facing the challenge in the first is raising awareness on the diversity, and then improving quality and quantity of special teachers. And the next one is inadequate facilities and infrastructure in educational services. Finally, I would like to thank all of you for your time and attention. That is all for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So have we got questions for our Indonesian colleagues?
So, Roy, is it
Yeah.
can explain some?
Sorry, Jeff. Can give me 2 minutes? Again, Risma and Anne, thank you very much. I'm curious about the Indonesia special education because I'm doing a survey and comparing two countries. I mean, Indonesia and Taiwan, and I found it's very interesting because I put it briefly. Because the survey shows that Taiwan, that the Indonesian teachers have higher scores in inclusive education perceptions. They feel more confident. They feel more sufficient, self-efficacy, you know. But actually, it surprised me because in Taiwan we invested a lot of money And we have the very strong special education, very strong. Each school have the separate units to deal with the special education. You know, we have a special class in each school, special schools in each county. We invest 45 GTP in special education. Now, my point is that because we relax your education. So for me, after that, I'm asking your opinions. If this is not good, when you want to move toward inclusive education, it's not good to make teachers think, okay, it's the regular teacher always think it's not belong to, you know, special kids belongs to special education teacher, not belongs to me. I think it's happening here. And because you mentioned, we go back to you mentioned the disability, you know, your social disability and the deficit disability. You talk about we need to recognize the environment as the main cause for disability, not the physical or psychological deficit. So that my point is that because that kind of idea is perspective is very widespread in Europe, in Australia, but it's so limited in, I mean, in Taiwan or even in the United States. So it's quite different perspective. So I'm asking you, how do you think about this issue? And in your country, if the teaching rely on regular teachers, not the special education teachers, for me, I guess it's happening in your country. That's why I have this kind of result. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Roy. Yeah, actually, like you said, it is spread all over the world. Like when you can say that UNESCO also support about the act, like from Salamanca statement and etc. Actually, in this Indonesian archipelago, this is quite challenging about how the island and how the student have their services actually. That's why we are start like I said, is we are moving toward inclusion. Even it is start like by the project from the government and all the school like being pushed to accept the student. Now the government also makes some project how to improve the quantity of the quality of the special teacher. So the main idea is the special school become the most resources, like from the human resources, the equipment, like the tools, like the media, where they can share about with the regular school. Even it's still the challenge. So mostly we have to think about the how the education can be go very deep, like maybe in a very traditional school. Like we are we are not talking about a school in the city, but we also talking about how to reach the children in the remote area. So this is why we think the some of the inclusive education can be maybe in some point is being an answer for that. So maybe Anne can also give some point about that. So Roy asking about why we are choosing about this inclusive education, but don't get us wrong that special education also being still our very focusing. So we are not deleting the special school. The special school is really still one of the core for the services, but now we are seeing about how to reach to the remote area where there is no special school there. So maybe Anne can can give us some point.
Burisma, can you explain? Burisma, can you explain the perception about inclusive education in our teachers in our countries? Our teacher have perception about inclusive education to include children with special education in regular school, right, Burisma? But the point in inclusive education is talk about diversity of student. So every student must be accommodation in learning. I think that Purisma.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In some point that when when teacher hear about inclusive education, oh, so I have to accept diverse student. That is the first thing that we have to change there, that even it's not seeing like the student have some impairment, like when Jeff said about learning this difficulty, right? When there is no physical impairment they have, but they have difficulty in school. So this is something we have to serve. So how to teacher recognize about the needs of the student, and how they do the assessment. Yeah, it is like maybe there's some question from the participant before, like how do we know about the ASD students? So many teachers in Indonesia also cannot don't know about, is it student with learning disability, or this is just a naughty student that cannot adapt with all the learning. So we also still facing that, right? So it is like when you say so, when we start the inclusive education, or we are toward the inclusion, so the main thing is how we create teachers to know what is the strength of the student and what is the potential, and they know how to help the student. So it is also the inclusive services actually. So how this is the inclusive
Risma, can I say
works.
that? So Risma, can I say the regular teachers bear the responsibility for teaching special needs kids? Can I say that
Yes,
in your
for it,
country?
yes, in regular setting.
Everywhere,
Yes,
everywhere. General education has responsibilities.
No, I mean the teachers. I'm not talking about the system. I mean the
No, I know.
teachers.
Everywhere.
yes.
The
It's
regular teachers also.
responsible. It's
Yeah.
it's a co-responsibility between general ed and special ed, even though not always cooperative. I want to thank you, Rixma and En. It's been really good listening to you, and I'm curious, in Indonesia, do you have any immigration?
Immigrant, you means, right?
Yes.
Yeah, in some area we also have like from like Rohingya, and also, but it was
From
like
where?
in
From
the
where?
borders, in the borders. No,
Myanmar.
yes, but in the borders. So not in like in some island. No, we don't have it in like in Java.
But what
in
is your
Sumatra.
number one group of immigrants?
Not so sure, Ben. Imigran yang paling banyak apa ya?
Because I know you're an island.
No, I think.
Not so sure about that, Jeff.
Okay. Well, everybody, I want to thank you. If Rixma, if you could stop your screen share.
Sure.
And everybody, turn on your cameras, please. Let's take some pictures. Everybody.
Wait a moment. Wait.
All right. Take some pictures, everybody. And another one.
Goodbye, sir.
Okay. Good job. Hey, it's been a pleasure to see everybody. And I really want to thank you for attending. I sent a link for your certificates. Our next one, 221. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you so much,
Love
Dr.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great evening. Great day.
I hope to see you again.
Thank you
next
so
time.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh.
Yeah.
It worked
Ron, we
good.
will continue the discussion,
Success.
okay? Okay, bye.